Assalamu alaikum friends. Today we're going to learn how to skin a chattu, a tabla, a dayan. And it's different a little bit with the Qawwali one, and I'll show you how that works, but otherwise it's pretty similar to the classical tabla, and we'll just go through all the different steps to do it yourself. It's not so hard, but give yourself at least a couple hours the first time, and then inshallah it should take about 45 minutes after that once you've learned how to do it. So first I'll show you the different tools that one needs after you have the broken skin, or for example you have a skin that you've used for so long that it's starting to look a little uneven. As many times as you've sanded it, it's losing the ounce, the resonance, so this would be switched. So here are the different tools one would use. You want to have your friendly neighborhood tabla hammer and some gloves if you're a pansy. Now it's if you do this a lot, your hands will get pretty wrecked. I'm used to it even with calluses. It's good to use the gloves. Some really nice strong pliers, some scissors, and a flathead screwdriver. And so what you have here is, first of all, we're going to take apart the tabla, take off the gut and unstring it, which is quite time consuming. So there's not much to know here other than obviously this one needs to be re-headed. So we'll fast forward through this. Basically you're just gonna go through and take it all apart, and it's quite easy. You can see the points here where it's where the knots are, and you'll just go in and undo them. Now it helps to have the gloves, and it also helps to have this screwdriver to pull it out, and the pliers to pull it as well. Okay. So when you're taking apart taking the skin off from the previous tabla, like I said, you're going to use this screwdriver to pluck open the knots, and you also want to make sure you take off all of these pegs. And I've also got this fancy tool I had made, which is basically just like a piece of a broomstick with a hook, and this can also help sometimes if you need to pull them through at any point. You'll see as we go, but you just want to basically use your brute strength to pull them through all the spots one by one. So in case you haven't noticed already, I like to keep the gut and the old head on the tabla shell as I'm taking it off. It just keeps things organized. It may be tempting to take it off and just have it along with the head like that, but I'd suggest just keeping it together, using your feet to like hold it, and hands to hold it in place. Much more organized. And then sometimes with the gut here, you just have to kind of throw it somewhere where it will best like feed through, so you have a little bit of room. Hopefully you have enough space to give it some room to move as you pull it through. Again, having the gloves for this is really quite helpful. There's our skin removed. Sometimes it's good to keep those actually, because you can cut a little piece out when you need it. And then you can keep this still connected to the ring here, as you see. Sometimes the bottom ring needs a little bit of care. I put some very careful care into putting some duct tape around it, but it's often like some fishing line or like a brake cable from a bicycle. In Pakistan, and you see that the high drum dayan is completely hollow all the way through. While with the classical tradition, you'll find the drum is a lot heavier. Even though this is also teak, it's lighter because it's completely empty for that really kind of big and loud sound. Boisterous tabla sound. Now, here's some example of skins. The beautiful thing about, the tablas that I get are custom made from our favorite maker in Lahore that makes Qawwali tablas to spec. So they're all made completely from scratch, every element of this. And the skins are actually made on the tabla itself. So they're very snug. Even though there's like a few different sizes, they're made like perfectly to fit the drum. So I'll get a few skins when I have a drum made. I mean, ideally you just have one drum for each key for life, right? And so the main keys we use in Qawwali are F, which is Chauta Safed, and Dusra Kala is D sharp. So the way to get high, to see which one's higher, is you feel the thickness of the siai. It's very thin. So the thinner the siai, the higher the key. You can feel like this is the D sharp and that's the F. And you can also, with these Qawwali tablas, the actual skin is a lot thicker than classical tabla skin. It has to be very strong to be able to be tuned up to these very high pitches. So we have our skin here. Fits nice. Want to make sure that everything's well tucked in. Sometimes people put a little tiny bit of liquid on this outside, but I wouldn't suggest it. You want to make sure everything stays completely dry on the head itself. Pop it on there. And now the first step is you want to tie this head down. This is kind of one of the finer elements of this job, because as you're pulling this gut through, you want to make sure you're not pulling it, making it too tight on one side. You want to be very gradual and careful the way that you pull the skin up. This is very important in the whole balancing process. As you can tell, one of the reasons this went to shit is because you see it's gone further on this side and closer on that side. So the whole idea is to have a perfectly balanced head. Now, the way to do that is when you tie it, you have your, I use some of these old Dhamma leather, and basically what you want to do is tie the head down so you can put it through if you can. You might need a little bit of screwdriver to carefully get it through. Be very careful not to scrape the head with the screwdriver and get it through. And use your needle nose pliers to pull it through. Just do a quick tie on there. So then you want to get your, just like a complete one, you'll see that at the point where it starts, there's a couple ways to do this, but the most direct way is to see that you go counterclockwise from the bottom. So you have it go from over, and then under, over, right? Just make sure you never, that's the most important thing, you don't do an over followed by an over. The first one doesn't matter. So we can pop that in using our thing here. Yep. So I'm gonna put it here. Think of it as 4 points. So basically what we're doing is we're tacking down 4 equal distance points so that the head stays in place when we're doing this whole lovely process of skinning. You see that you want to keep the gut in the same way, right? So you don't want to twist when you put it on. You want to stay the same way. So like what we did before, at the beginning is the most challenging, just like at the end of taking it apart was the most challenging. Throw our gut over there. And we'll just make sure it's all the same way using your hand and your eyes like this to go through it. Don't get distracted. If you make one mistake and then forget and then come back and see it later, you have to take it all apart again. So it's one of those things. Okay, it's all facing the same direction, and you'll just use the sharp end. Sometimes you want to cut this with scissors to make sure it's sharp enough to easily go through, and you just put it right through the hole. And then you'll tuck this over on the other side because it's going to go through. And then since this one is going, as you can see, it'll be over and coming under, then it'll go over the ring after we get to that point. But for now, let's just tighten it up. And again, you just want to hold the head steady. Okay, so every time you pull it through, you want to make sure you've done it the right way. Zoop, over and under, that's good. There's no twist in there, no fold. And you don't want to pull it tight. You want to just keep it so it's just barely holding the skin in place. That's what's important for now. Now we're going to go back to this leather bit that's going to hold the skin on. Just going to put it like this. Also not very strong, not very tight. Let's put it over the bottom just like that. And just make it tight enough to stay on. This one obviously doesn't matter if it's twisted or not. We'll go through the same process of pulling it through. Just be careful when using the screwdriver. Don't want to scrape the edge of your head. The actual tabla skins are actually quite fragile in many ways. Just going to want to make sure that you're very careful with that. Okay, now the tension should be just enough to hold it in place. You don't want it to be again, you don't want it to be a heavy tension. And we'll pull this back through here. This. And we'll use that to, just like that, to tie the last of the forearm in. Some people skin tablas without doing this and have to always be holding it in place, and it's a lot more work and a lot more challenging to keep the tension even. So this method of tying the four corners, I think, is the most important. There, now the skin is like held in place well, given that it's got 4 points of tension. So here, doesn't matter if this one goes over or under from here. Goes over, comes from under, then goes over the ring, coming from under. Just make sure that that's consistent all the way through. And you can see that there's a little too much tension on the ring. If you see it's ever getting pulled too far, you can just manually pull it back. Give it a little slack. In this first round, you want to make sure the ring is more or less perfectly in place and that there's no tension kind of pulling it like you saw earlier. This is very important. You want to stretch the skin in any direction too far. And so you do the same process here as I did before, but backwards, and I'll just make sure that the gut is not bending or folding or crossing over, so we keep it the same way. There we go. And then pulling it from under and feeding it through. Now when you feed it through, you also want to keep it from folding over in the same way, just like we did. Okay, so once you've strung this bad boy up and gotten all of it in with like no major tension, just make sure the ring is in the right place. And what I can see here is that the head is a little bit tilted to one side, so you should have enough slack to even it out. I want to make sure it's even at the beginning. It's very important. And if there's any tension on any of these that's making it pull on one side, then make sure to get rid of that tension first off. This is very important. It's very even, and you can even use the Tabla hammer. One side is lower, just manually move it. This is one of the most important parts of the whole process, is this evening of the skin that can lead to issues later on if you're not careful. So then you want to take the slack out of where you feel it's the loosest to slowly start evening it out. And in the whole process, just watching the placement of the ring, placement of the head, and make sure it's evenly placed, and that the guts are also spaced evenly is also important. Sometimes you see it kind of fold like that, so that's when you know that there's like, it's not even. And just take your time, don't pull it tight in any place. Don't create any serious tension, just slowly taking out the slack. Yeah, like doing up your shoelaces. If it gets too tight at any point, feel free to back it off by loosening the tension and starting again. And just watching that the placement of the head is evenly placed. Yeah, it looks pretty flat. Looks good. You see that all right?
Tilted both ways. That way and then the other way. So I can get a flat angle. Yeah.
And again, you want to make sure that these are all evenly placed. There's like space between each of them. Now that it's getting tighter, you can kind of, while it's still loose, you can have the freedom to move them a little bit. Looks good. And then again, yeah, little by little. You have to go around like this about half a dozen times in the first moments of this process. Very carefully watching that you're not adding too much tension and that all the guts are evenly spaced along the bottom ring. So I'm just physically being very attentive to checking that the skin is balanced and that it's evenly, like the tension on it is even. After you do a few rounds, you can check out the tone as it slowly starts to come. These Qawwali tablas are meant to be tuned very high, so even though there's tension on the skin, until there's a lot of tension, you won't really get any kind of clear tonal resonance. So it takes time. Good, so once you've done about 6 rounds, it could be any number, but just slowly giving more tension. The last time you should feel like, okay, I've like really pulled a lot of the slack out of it, right? Then you want to just pull that last one nice and tight and send it through for the knot. You can also feel like, okay, there's a tune coming. There's no tha yet. Then you want to send this around. Use your screwdriver. Get it in there. Oops. Don't stab yourself with any of the tools. Okay, so you just pull it through Make sure there's no tension, no slack. Pull out all the tension. Like that. And make the knot. It's a straight knot like that, just like the other one. And if the gut is new, it might be a little tight, so you can get it tight just by using the good old Tabla hammer. Now, we've created a good amount of tension. You can feel that it's even. You can see that it's even in the position of the rim and the position of the ring, more or less. Now we want to put the pegs in. So first we'll do, now when it's a classical tabla and a lower pitch, then you could pull it to the point where you can actually hear a low tone. The Qawwali one is the one where you want to feel like, okay, it's getting close, I can feel the tension is even and hand tight. Then you're going to start with this first one here, where you have the knot, and just put a peg in each second one. Because the whole process of the skin stretching takes time, and it has to be done slowly as well. So you want to slowly add the tension to the skin bit by bit like this. You don't want to pull it up really fast. And you also want to check the tone as you go, most importantly, so you know how tight the skin is. So, there we go. I've put a peg in every second strap. Getting closer. Now I'm gonna double the peg to the next one, to the next one, like this. So each peg is in 2 straps. Yep. Now each peg has 2 straps. You can just pull them down to kind of like a middle point. Just this part of the whole hand tightening, gradual tension process. So you're getting a little bit of a tone. You can hear that's lower, that's higher. So that we're bringing it up even, we're going to tune it as we go. So starting from the place with the tone, so it's lower. And you can use the opposite side. For example, if it's lower, turn it to the opposite side to even the tension. So where it's low, bring it up. Where it's high, you can also hit it down. So what we've basically done is we've more or less evened out the head by finding basically a common pitch. Obviously it's still low and not actually on the exact pitch, but see what we've done is we've evened out the tension in these straps. So now we can also use this handy dandy tool. We'll pop our gloves back on, and we're going to basically pull out the tension again by hand, and we've used these pegs to basically even out the straps. Yeah, so now we've got our gloves on, we got this handy dandy tool in case we need it. So we're just going to try to keep this pitch, which is kind of like the lowest possible pitch of the skin, as we pull out the pegs one more time. So we'll do 1 peg at a time and try to maintain that tension with their hands the best we can as we go around. Now that the tension's already been set with the pegs, we're gonna maintain it without the pegs the best we can. maintained it pretty well. You can still hear that pitch. You're on track. And then we'll do the same thing with the knot. Let's pull the slack. We don't want it to be like too loose at that very last point. So, especially with this key, which is the F, the high key, it requires a lot of tension on the skin, which makes it the hardest one to head and tune, because you have to get the tension just right. I've destroyed a few heads from that very process of not being careful enough whilst bringing the tone up, taking too much slack out too quick, just being impatient basically. Great. So then we'll do the same thing again, where we put in the pegs, starting with the first one. Just do one once again. So yeah, it's a patient process, but this is how we arrive at the perfectly skinned tabla, because once it's skinned, there's not much you can do if you did it incorrectly. It'll never sound as good as it could. Okay, so here we go. Getting a clear tone, but we do need it to be higher to actually get a tone that's in the vicinity of what we want. So we'll put it through again. That's the second strap. There's 4 different places where you can put the pegs in a tabla. Usually you want to have it on the 2-strap, ideally. Some people do this and that strap. Some people do strap 1 and strap 2. This is the case where this would go great. I think it's fine to do it like this. It's actually a lot more practical. The point is you just want to have it completely even all the way around, so the tension is exactly the same. There, so now we are. It looks nice. It looks like the head is sitting on there just right. You don't see it being stretched really far at any point. So we'll start at the beginning. And where it's low, just bring it up. Just a little bit. And it's high, so we'll knock it down just a little bit. And unless the tone is very close around, you won't get a clear pitch. So you have to keep it, you have to bring the tension up of the pitch just so that you can actually get a clear tone. If one is way too loose and another is too high, it'll wreck the actual quality of tone, and it'll be very confusing to tune. Now you got like about enough tension for the first tuning. You can get more specific and fine tune it to that note that you're hearing. So it's about a D sharp now, which is good. So basically we want to first tune it to the like 2 semitones below the pitch that we want. So for example, D sharp is 2 keys, 2 harmonium notes, 1 tone, 2 semitones. We can just say 2 notes lower. So we'll tune it to the D sharp after pulling it up, and let the tabla sit overnight, because then it'll stretch over the time. And then in the morning when we play it, we'll notice that it's a lot lower, and it's good to play it a bunch to work it in. Then what we want to do, especially when the weather's like this where it's dry, you want to put the tabla in the sun, the morning sun, not like the really hot sun. Especially be careful in really hot countries. But that morning sun will dry out the skin, so just monitor it just for 10-15 minutes. Make sure there's no humidity. And you'll put the tabla skin facing the morning sun for 10-15 minutes, and notice the pitch will go up, potentially almost a semitone. And then you'll bring it inside and tune it again, up 1 note. Then play it a bunch that day. Then the next day, do the same thing. If you have sun, that's great. If you don't, it's okay too, but just don't use like a hair dryer or like a heat bulb or anything. You just gotta be patient. So after 2 or 3 days, you bring it to the actual pitch, if you can. It's the best way to do it. Otherwise, there's a chance it could break or not be even. So by day 2 or 3, then you'll have it at F, play it a bunch, it'll get flat, play it a bunch, it'll get flat, and then just work it in over that first few days until you have a crisp F. And so it's the morning time now. The sun has just risen, so we'll have our tabla head facing the sun for just about 10-15 minutes, carefully monitored. Doesn't get too hot. This helps gently dry the skin and pull it tighter. Little baby Ashik is monitoring it for me. Aren't you? Yeah! Okay, so now it's been a couple days. We've tuned the tabla back up to D sharp a couple times after we had that first round of skinning, and it ended up on D sharp. Then played it a little, went down to D, put it in a little bit of morning sun, as you saw, and then brought it back up to D. Then later that night, I tuned it up to E, so one more semitone up. And now it's just, as the skin slowly stretches, it's gone back down to around a D sharp or so. So the idea is we've taken this time to let the skin stretch on its own time without rushing it. Since it's a Qawwali tabla, it's very high. And we're starting to hear the resonance really nice. And we've kept it perfectly in tune all the way around, so when it stretches, it's not stretching unevenly. So now we're going to bring it up to our F finally, that we've taken this time. So now that the pegs are all the way at the bottom, we're going to pull the tension out of them once more. So if you watch here, just like we've done, we start on the knot there, just like we did before. And as we take out each of the pegs, we're going to keep that tension taut and keep that note on the D sharp. It'll move a little bit, but it's okay. Here you can keep as much tension as you physically can. It's okay now that it's tight and tuned. In other words, there's no danger of putting too much tension into one strap because all the straps already have complete tension on them. Okay, now that we pulled all the tension out, you can see the head is still pretty even. Honestly, it's a tiny bit higher on that side, but it's not much of a muchness. But you really want to try to get it exactly as flat as possible. The rim, you can tuck in this extra whenever you're ready. And so now we're going to put the pegs back in. It's naturally gone a little out of key, but more or less in the location we want it. So let's put in 2 at a time since we're going to tune it all the way up, just like we done before. And then we can use the middle one as the third one if we need to get that extra little bit of tone up. I think one reason this is like typically a low cast job is because you're touching your instrument with your feet. I find it fun though. Pretty fun seeing my guru do this for the first time when I was learning tabla as a teenager. It's like, wow, he's really using his feet. It's fun. I've never seen something like that. Okay, so now we have all the pegs in, just like that. We'll see where our note is. I think to properly do it, I need to take this off. A little powder. Okay, that sounds like it's close to F there. Let's see where it is. Got this tuner I can use actually with the sound. It's D sharp. F there. Let's first just balance it out. Looks like we're close enough. So balancing the head once again. Kind of pull these down to like middle point. Ideally, when you get to this point, if you've done it properly, then there won't be like one way down there and one really high up. It would be pretty balanced. So you have room to play. So the more balanced it gets and the more that it stretches into its place, the more that you'll find the resonance is nice and clear and what we call an anse is true, like the note will ring. Now that we've tuned it more or less, you'll play it and it'll go down, you tune it up, go down a little, tune up, just like putting new strings on a guitar for the first hour or so, and then it sets in place and starts sounding really good. Let's see where we're at. It's our F. So we're almost at an F sharp, which is okay because that gives us that little extra stretch. I'm just going to play it for a few minutes and then it'll sink down to the F probably after about 10 minutes of playing. And then we'll just maintain it perfectly in that pitch and keep the tabla dry and balanced. So see, I have plenty of room to tune it up when I need to based on these locations, and it'll sound very lovely. I know that there's cases when you just need to get a tabla skin on, because it's happened plenty of times when we're on tour that a tabla head breaks and you just got to get it up, and that's fine and that works too. But this method of taking your time to let it stretch and be even as it tunes up is much better and healthier way to keep a skin strong and long lasting. So thanks for joining me here. Feel free to message us on whatever platform we're using at the Sama School at the time if you have any questions, me or Kashbai, and we look forward to hearing how your progress is. Have a beautiful day. Khuda Hafiz.